Welcome to the very first episode of Triple Overtime. Now, for those of you who, obviously it would be the first time you're tuning in, but if you have no idea what's going on here, this is going to be an absolute amazing show about sports. Who doesn't love sports? So we're going to get into the nitty, the gritty, and everything else regarding sports, So I will introduce myself. I am Austin Snyder. You can catch me on Twitter at Austin Snyder 90. Catch me on Facebook just at Austin Snyder. And catch me on TikTok at Austin Snyder 509. And with me are these two amazing gentlemen who I just can't say enough great things about them. So I'll let them say it about themselves. Go ahead, boys.
Okay, great things, I don't know, but I'll just tell you my name. I'm Amaar Burton. Catch me at Amaar_206 on Instagram and on Twitter. Also find me on Facebook. It's at Amaar Burton. You can also find my writing at sohh.com. That's my hip hop job, or umasports.net. That's my sports blog. So I'm doing a lot of stuff, including this podcast. And you know Austin, you know me. And so now we're going to get to know Dillon.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Dillon Holloway. And for those who don't know me, I am studying journalism, sports journalism to be exact, at Rutgers University. Huge sports fan. I cannot speak. Huge sports fan from the state of Washington, like Austin, my younger brother. Grew up a Seattle Seahawks fan. Root for the Mariners, as sad as that is. No basketball team anymore, sadly. But we are three guys who love sports. Amaar and myself are in the sports journalism business. And we are here to give you guys a very fun show on our pilot episode here.
And I'm here to ride their coattails, being that they're the actual journalists, and I'm just some guy. So
some guy who loves sports, though, dang it.
Absolutely.
And it shows on the hat and it shows in the background.
Oh, yeah. Signed Brian Urlacher photo, signed Russell Wilson, novelty helmet. Oh, I get it. I get down.
Yeah, that signed Russell Wilson football. Might want to put that one in the closet soon, unfortunately.
I know I got the most bare background out of all of us. That's because my recording studio is also the nursery for my two twins.
The closet under the stairs.
Basically, yeah. So, as you can see, we got a crib right here, over to one side. If I turn this camera a little bit, you'd be seeing, all the kids stuff on the wall. But, I gotta get me like a sports den. I need a man cave. Yeah.
A few more episodes will be lush enough with cash that you can do that.
Oh yeah. It's gonna blow up. So NBA All-Star was this past weekend. So I'm assuming we all watched the game. What did you guys think this year? I mean, it was just very different, just due to COVID, no fans, doing everything in one night, 3-point, all, the game, dunk contest and all that. What just stood out to you kind of about the event? What'd you like? What didn't you like? And just what's kind of the main takeaway for you from this weekend?
Well, for me, what I enjoyed about the game, I know a lot of people talk about Giannis, and he was he still perfect at the end, or he was almost perfect? I know he started 16.
He was, yeah.
16.
Yeah,
and it was a lot of dunks, reverse layups. He was banking in threes. He was hitting corner threes. I mean, that's as hot as you can get when you're banking in threes, right? In the NBA, multiple threes. But what I really enjoyed was Steph Curry and Dame Lillard going back and forth. It was like anything you can do, I can do better. At one point, I believe it was Dame hit the first half court three. Steph came back they're on the same team, mind you, hit the next half court three. Steph tried to end the game on a half court three. He missed, and Dame successfully ended the game on a half court three. It was a lot of fun to watch. It just shows how much the NBA has changed, because in 15 years ago, that people, even in an all-star game, they'd be like, why are you shooting multiple half-court threes when there's still time on the clock? But it's just, these two guys are just some of the greatest shooters we've ever seen in our lives, and it's amazing to watch them in their craft. And I really enjoyed the all-star game this year. I'm not going to lie. I mean, even without the fans, it was a great atmosphere. It looked like everybody was having fun, which is the whole point. Everybody was trying, everybody was playing hard, and it was a lot of fun to watch some of the best players in the NBA today.
Yeah, I honestly agree with the Damian Lillard and the Steph. That was absolutely my favorite part as well as the change in the game. And to me, I think it made the All-Star game far more watchable. Because I remember back in the early to mid 2000s, even in the 90s, these All-Star games it was like just guys standing around as Michael Jordan and Kobe and whoever else just like ran up for a dunk. So it was really cool to see guys have fun with it, shoot up half court threes, and just do some pretty cool things like that, because there is definite skill that's involved in that. And to see them like have that part of their game so perfected, oh man, anytime is just awesome. Personally, I was a little disappointed in the fact that, they kind of had to cram everything into one day or one night. Mind you, I understand why they did it, but at the same time, I hope it's not like something that they feel that they should continue to do. I think the dunk contest was okay, some cool dunks or whatever, but nothing like in years past that's kind of been jaw dropping that we've seen out of these players. And I think a lot of that has to do with just the fact that it was so condensed. There just didn't seem to be a whole lot of time to kind of it's not like you're able to take the time to pull a car into the stadium or anything like that. So yeah, that was okay. The game itself, though, was super fun to watch. I didn't get to watch all of it, but the what I did watch and the highlights and everything was it was entertaining. It was very, very cool. So yeah, hopefully we see more of that throughout the coming years, and just seeing just cooler and more inventive ways for the players. It almost seemed like they were playing like just looser and having more fun with it, because fans weren't there. You know what I mean? Like they just didn't have that heavy expectation to get the crowd riled up, or which I mean they would have been given the shots that they were making. But yeah, it almost just had more of like, in the off season, you'll see videos that get posted where these players, they all, LeBron James and company, all go down to UCLA or whatever. And it felt like that, where you're just watching guys give it their all, and just, yeah, a little bit less pressure, a little bit looser, that kind of stuff. So I didn't mind it. I enjoyed it, honestly.
I think there are certain, as we've learned over the last year, like there's certain sporting events that you really need a crowd. And I think the dunk contest is one of those things. Like it's not the same without a crowd. It's just not as hyped. Just the reactions just isn't the same. Even when, you had the players there, they were on the sidelines, and there was like a couple of, celebrities and stuff that were there, but like, it's just different when there's no crowd. And so I think the dunk contest kind of suffered from that. I think it also suffered because it was, three, young guy, like two rookies and three young guys that people just aren't that familiar with. And I was thinking that because it was on the same day as the game and the halftime of the game, that maybe they would pull one of those stars out, like Zion or LeBron or somebody because it's like, they're already warmed up. They played the first half of the game. So maybe Zion could just do the dunk contest and then not play in the second half, which he didn't really play in the second half anyway. I don't think LeBron played in the second half either. So
no, and you're talking two dunks. They had two dunks per round. So
really, the dunk contest really did not feel like an event this year.
I think I was thinking like would it
that like shouldn't have even been like when they do like the fan shooting contest or whatever, we're all at home watching commercials while the people in the stadium or whatever and are enjoying it. But yeah, it didn't feel like this big monumentous moment that it usually is, which is there an asterisk next to the dunk contest trophy this year? Because I know there's a lot of people who utilize that trophy as like means for a guy's resume. You know what I mean? Like, he's got X, Y, and Z on his resume. Oh, and he's a, multiple time 3-point champion or dunk contest champion, all-star MVP, whatever the case. Obviously, they're not super duper important awards, but they do weigh on somebody's career resume.
For some, it makes their whole career, like D Brown, right? Like,
right.
what do we know about D Brown other than he won the dunk contest, right?
Right.
Nate Robinson, he won 3 dunk contests. Like that's at the top of his NBA resume. So,
right.
For someone like Anthony Simons, like this might be the peak of his career, for all we know.
Ooh.
But I think it's funny because I think in a lot of years, like people complain about there's too many props and there's too much extra, right? Like jumping over mascots and, doing all this extra stuff. And there wasn't a lot of that this year, I think, just because of the time constraint. And, there wasn't as much planning, I think, going into it. Like we didn't even know there's going to be an all-star weekend this year, right? Some guys, they go into the dunk contest, they plan out their routine all season long and they practice it, like Gerald Green is a guy I remember, like he practiced his dunk contest stuff. Like he had props, he had it thought out, like all that, so I think there wasn't as much of that this year. I think there was only one dunk that had a prop, like when Simons when he put the little rim on the side of the but it wasn't like no one like jumped over anything crazy or jumped over a car or nothing like that.
I don't understand the thought process to not liking that stuff. I mean, let's be real here. It's like we've all seen a flipping windmill dunk 600 times. We've all seen a reverse or a whatever the case. So many times, and it's like you can only see that so many times and still be like, oh my God, totally wowed by it. So yeah, you have to add some degree of difficulty. And yeah, when you start like getting creative and like, you can't tell me Dude Perfect became this big, popular, amazing YouTube show and onward because like because of the props or whatever, because that's their whole gimmick is making these shots and all this stuff off of, I'm gonna bounce it off of 18 walls and blah, 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 because it's the degree of difficulty and accomplishing that feat is incredible. Just like when Blake Griffin jumped over that car, just like when these dudes are jumping over multiple people or whatever, I mean, that's what makes the event entertaining.
Yeah. I mean, it was very winnable for a star. If a star had entered, I think just off brand name alone, they would have probably won the whole thing. I honestly thought, I mean, up until the second round began, I was still thinking like, okay, Zion's gonna just pop up as like a surprise entrant, or it's gonna be like WWE, like that's LeBron James's music, like he's gonna surprise everyone,
right?
And like because I'm like, and he would just have to do something real simple and win. But hopefully next year, everything's back to what we consider normal, and we can have like a real dunk contest with 4 guys and real all-star game and all that. But so that is the NBA All-Star break, though. So going into the last portion of the regular season, into the playoffs, do y'all have any like kind of really like bold predictions for what's going to happen the rest of the way in the NBA?
Absolutely, of course. And I'll tell you, my bold prediction for the end of the NBA. Now, I do backtrack a little bit because at first I said 10 games. I will say 15, though. But the Brooklyn
Nets, we go.
The Brooklyn Nets big 3, consisting of James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and KD, will go, not win, because I don't think they'll win it, but they will. They might. But anyways, they will go to the NBA Finals with their big 3 having played less than 15 total games together as a unit. I'm telling you. So what that's going to entail is the same thing. There's a big possibility that KD does not come back at all for the regular season, which rightfully so. I mean, they're still winning games. They're still putting up big points. I mean, they're doing what they need to do. James Harden is playing out of his mind. I mean, he's just like totally taken over that team. And I think that's incredible. And kudos to Kyrie Irving for finally like stepping back and not acting like the entitled, spoiled little brat that he has been for the last few years. I mean, I know they're tough words to hear, but he has, dude. Kyrie Irving, he used to be one of my favorite players, but I have grown to have just a very, very bad taste in my mouth because of that guy. and so, but that's for a whole nother segment maybe. But I'm telling you, Harden and Kyrie together will get them to the playoffs as a respectable seed. With KD there, then at that point we're going to start seeing, I don't think Harden will take any games off. We've never really seen him do the load management thing, but I think between KD and Kyrie, we won't see those two consistently on the floor with the three of them until they make it to the NBA finals. Because I think they know that they can at least get there by allowing each, Kyrie or KD to rest, and KD especially because he is not out of the woods with his injury, and he showed a lot of that this season. He'd played great so far, but you could see he was much more timid driving to the rim. He was definitely utilizing that incredible unblockable jump shot of his a bit more. It just, he didn't feel like as aggressive as we've seen him in the past, and I know he's not an overly aggressive player, but so anyways, that's my bold prediction. They will have played less than 15 total games together and still make it to the NBA finals.
Now, do you think that because even though they've only played a few games together, is that they're not going to be able to share the ball thing a dead argument now? Like in the few times they did play, did they do enough to prove, okay, yeah, we can share the ball?
I think
tough. They did.
Yeah, I think they did. The reality is a lot of, I don't, and this is one reason why, it is a bold prediction, but at the same time, it's not, because that relationship between the three of those guys it extends so much more beyond just practicing together. You know what I mean? KD and Kyrie had predetermined that they were going to Brooklyn together, or Brooklyn or New York. That was the two teams, right? So obviously they're good friends, obviously they talk, they kind of have they're on the same page as to what we're doing here, what the end game is. KD and Harden obviously have a relationship, in some form. I don't know that they're best friends or whatever. But yeah, they were on that OKC team together. They went to the finals together before. There's definitely chemistry there. And at the end of the day, when you're talking about three elite basketball players, it doesn't matter. They just know the three of them will walk out onto that court together, and they will know exactly where they need to be, exactly whether they have the ball or not. KD will understand where he needs to be on the open three. Harden will understand what, where to pass that ball to catch Kyrie, in stride going to the rim or whatever. They just will know, because they're just total professionals. And two of them are MVPs, and they're three of the greatest players that we've ever seen, at the very least in this generation, if not Harden and KD potentially by career's end be on that greatest of all time list, near the top 10, if they're not at that point already, so and I also love that Harden's absolutely proving that he can play in any system. You know what I mean? You want me to be the guy to score 40 points a night, I'll do that. You want me to be the guy to put up 11 plus assists a night and not have to take on such a scoring load, I'll be that. I think it's great. I personally love James Harden, and I think he catches a lot of heat. I maybe don't like the way he left Houston, but the guy's an incredible basketball player and one of the greatest offensive talents I've ever seen in the over 2 decades of watching basketball. So
I agree with everything you said on Harden. I'm also a big fan of his. And I think that was a big knock on him, was that he can only play in that Houston system where everything is all about him. And he, has the ball all the time. And yeah, he's showing in Brooklyn that he doesn't have to play like that. He can play in a different system. He can, be more of a point guard facilitator type, or he can score 40. Right. And another guy that I don't even think you mentioned Blake Griffin yet. Him and KD, I believe they were not in the same high school class, but they were around the same time. They came through that circuit. And so they have a relationship that goes all the way back to when they were, teenagers. And so
Right.
I think we've seen from other big threes, like Miami's big three, when those guys are tight off the court, it's going to work out on the court. And they're not going to have those, problems with, I'm not getting enough shots or I'm not getting the ball enough, because, they want to play with their friends and they want to win and they're having fun. And so I think all that they can't share stuff was overblown, because like you said, those relationships they have off the court. So, okay, Dillon, I know I cut you off. So what were you going to say?
I was going to ask about Blake Griffin because Austin hadn't mentioned him, like you said. I wanted to ask Austin, in his opinion, real quickly, how much do you think Blake Griffin moves the needle there for the net? You think it's a big deal, or you think it's just kind of like he'll help a little bit and he'll get his ring kind of thing? He's hanging out. Yeah. Or do you think it's like, oh man, now this team is just like unstoppable?
I think it's a real similar situation to Dwight Howard joining the Lakers. Like, I think he's going to be a factor. Like, he'll definitely in some way, shape, or form, like at some point be like a key reason they won games, or one of the key reasons they won games, or whatever the case. But I mean, I don't think it puts him in a position where, all of a sudden, like, oh my God, could this potentially be the greatest team ever to grace the court kind of thing, or even put them in a position where it's like, well, they're for sure winning the finals. I mean, look what we saw with the Clippers last year. They stacked up on talent, as much that like name recognizable talent, right? And that's some of the problem that we fall into with sports, is like, you recognize the name, and then so you immediately think that like it's going to be this big, huge addition. But at the end of the day, it's just like with JJ Watt, these guys are not elite anymore, So it's just one of those things where, look at their contract. What they're being paid tells you that they are not these top here,
I don't know. JJ got a good contract, dude.
But you're also talking
he
about,
got a lot more than a lot of people thought he was going to get.
$20 million a year to play, and he's making 11. So yeah, he got overpaid for his age and everything else, but he also got paid like a little bit better than average rotational player.
JJ, I thought he got like 15.
No, because it was like, wasn't it a 2-year, 21 million or 22 million or something like that?
We'll have the producers check on that, but let's move into mine there. My bold prediction, and for some people, this is a really bold prediction. I have the New York Knicks making the NBA playoffs. Book it. Wow. Let's go. I know they were the 4th seed. They dropped to the 5th seed. Austin can't believe it. He's blown away. But these Knicks, well, they're not the Knicks of old, the Knicks that disappoint at the end there. These Knicks are playing real well. Coach Tips has these Knicks playing awesome. You got Julius Randle, who looks like a superstar out there, averaging 23 and 11. RJ Barrett, 16 and a half points. They got 4 other guys who are averaging double figures every game. This Knicks team looks really good. And the other point, the reason that I think they're going to make the playoffs is because they're in the East. There's only 3 teams in the East that look pretty formidable right now. You got the Bucks, you got the Nets, as Austin mentioned, and you got the Sixers. And besides that, you don't have a whole lot of really intimidating teams above the Knicks. Everybody's kind of floating at 500, maybe a little bit below. I know the Knicks are just barely above 500 right now as of this recording, but I think the Knicks are going to get the job done, and I think they're going to finish within the top 5 or 6 teams in the Eastern Conference, and they're going to make the playoffs, and New York fans can rejoice because the Knicks are going to be back. There's going to be a reason to cheer in New York. Come on now, Knicks fans, let's do this.
I'll tell you, if the Cleveland Browns could make the playoffs this year, then absolutely the Knicks can. And you're right. I mean, they're definitely playing with like a whole different energy than we've seen out of New York for, the last decade, 2 decades, 3 decades. I mean, it's been forever since there's been any like real true excitement surrounding the New York Knicks.
You've had spurts, but yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Not consistency.
We had Linsanity and stuff like that, but
Porzingis, Melo.
Right.
You've had spurts.
Well, but we're not talking about like, how many playoff appearances they made? You know what I mean? So this is it's a whole different, I guess hope is the word. Like you're seeing real true hope for this team. And I kind of like that stuff. You know what I mean? I like seeing teams like that. Hopefully one day we can feel that warmth in our heart for our beloved Seattle Mariners. I'm not holding my breath on that one though. Though they've got a couple hitters. They're spring, but same old Mariners. Spring training looked great.
Let's not bring up. Let's keep this a positive segment and refrain from bringing up the Seattle Mariners. All right, Amaar, who's your bold prediction? Let's get the Seattle Mariners taste out of our mouths. Amaar, who you got?
Well, okay, but going back to the Knicks though, like the last time I think they had,
Dillon, you were right, by the way. Sorry, Amaar. JJ Watt it's like a little under 15 million a year.
That's a lot, right?
Yeah. But again, you're talking about a position where guys make 20, 22, soon to be $25 million. What is it? Clowney, his contract was Frank Clark, he's making like $25+ million a year, so, but anyways, go ahead, Amaar. I apologize.
Well, I was saying the last time that I think the Knicks had, like real hope, like we're going to win a chip hope. And I was living in New York at this time. It was when they brought Chauncey, Melo, and Amari together.
Oh, yeah.
And that was like, what was that, like 2010 or 2011 or something like that?
Was that championship aspirations?
Yeah, it was like I was in the city, but I was in the city. It was like we got
like New York championship aspirations or like realistic NBA fan championship aspirations.
It was like
there is a difference.
It was
championship predictions.
It was Knicks fans coming off of the Isaiah Thomas era, coming off of the Eddie Curry era. Like we've got a legit team. Like we've got a real big three. We've got.
You got to remember, Melo was in the prime of his career at that point.
Yeah, Amari was in his prime.
Amari was still very much considered a great star player, and Chauncey was like that veteran, like savvy.
He had just recently led Denver. Well, not what he helped lead Denver to like a Western Conference Finals. So yeah, this was like they were going to do it. Like that was the thought in New York. And then I think and they had a great like first year, like half a season together. And I think Amari got hurt and it just kind of went downhill from there. But yeah, there's like real hope. There was real hope then. I mean, I think now this is like, we're a good young team, like we're building something, which is cool. But my prediction is the Golden State Warriors are going to make the playoffs and advance around. And I know that it shouldn't be that bold because like they've got Steph Curry and this was like a recent, title contender. But if you look at it, they're ninth place in the West right now. Curry's playing at like an MVP level, but they don't have that cast around him of like established stars. They've got like Andrew Wiggins and they've got like Kelly Oubre and James Wiseman. It's like good young talent. And it's Curry and Draymond Green are like the experienced, championship guys that are leading the way. And I love the way Draymond's playing right now. He's only averaging like 5 points a game, but he's handing out, I think 8 or 9 assists a game, playing like this, like Anthony Mason on steroids, like ball handling, passing, power forward role, which like I just love from him. So yeah, I could see Golden State getting into the playoffs, like 7th or 8th seed, and knocking off. If Utah stays as a top seed in the West, I see Golden State beating them in the playoff series. Phoenix is like number 2 right now. If they stay in that 2 spot and Golden State's like a 7, I see Golden State beating them in the series. I just feel like Curry's going to turn it on. He's going to turn on like MVP Curry, and Draymond's going to, turn on like the best of Draymond, and they're going to get around. And then I don't know who they play after that, and then they lose. But yeah, that's my prediction for the season.
Full disclosure, I am a big fan of Golden State. I love Steph Curry. Klay Thompson's my favorite player from Washington State. Love me some Draymond Green. But this is more Utah Jazz slander if I've ever heard it. Come on, man. Even I'm not ready to take Golden State in a 7-game series over the Utah Jazz. I don't know. I love Golden State, but this Golden State team is so up and down right now. It is hard to get too much confidence in them to make the playoffs, let alone a series. I think you're really setting yourself up for sadness and disappointment.
How the mighty have fallen.
If we get 1 versus 8, Utah versus Golden State, I'm putting money on Golden State.
How much?
I mean, I never really bet more than like, I'd be mad about losing. So it's not going to be a lot, but I don't know.
You'll put something though.
I'll put
I
something
don't think
down.
that'd necessarily be a bad bet, just because you would have a decent opportunity to get a decent return on it.
Mm-hmm.
But man, and Dillon's right. That team is so up and down. And not only that, but I mean, yes, we have seen MVP Curry and we're seeing MVP Curry come back, but Curry also has a really, really nasty habit of breaking down towards the playoffs and being a bit inconsistent in the playoffs, even in his MVP years. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things where, like, even if he does turn on playoff Curry has shown that might not necessarily be the type of player you need to carry you through a 7-game series, especially up against a young, good, dynamic team that we're seeing out of Utah, or even Phoenix as well, being led by Chris Paul, who is playing just really inspired basketball at his age, man. I mean, he's to me, he's like being Tom Brady right now, where he's stepping into a team that just has really incredible, amazing talent that we've seen over the last couple of years that they've kind of stockpiled, but they're just so young. And so now they finally have this like Hall of Fame presence that's going to come in and glue them together and just help them understand where they can be their most efficient and play their absolute most efficient best basketball, where it's not all about, Devin Booker putting up, 70 points or whatever, in any given night or anything like that, where it's about, hey, that's great, but you still lost the game, brother. You know what I mean? So you guys need to be able to understand your roles, and let's take it from here. Man, I think they could, not to throw out a second bold prediction, but I think the Suns could at least make the conference championship. I mean, really, they're playing some really inspired basketball, man.
But if we're talking history, though, Utah blew a 3-1 lead in the playoffs last year, and Chris Paul has a lot of first-round exits and, blown playoff leads himself. So, and the team around Chris Paul, like a lot of them guys have never even been to the playoffs before. So, True. I think, Golden State, they're going to have, and Golden State's got guys like that too, but they've got Curry, they've got Draymond, and they've got Steve Kerr, who's, won championships as a coach. Right. So I just feel like that experience edge. I mean, Curry's got Chris Paul's number, it seems like he's ever since Chris Paul was in LA. So yeah, I just see that going Golden State's way and then them getting to at least the second round.
Did Austin compare Chris Paul to Tom Brady? Did I imagine that, or did that happen?
I think.
Well, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me that's not a similar.
You're wrong. I'll tell you, you're wrong right now.
Okay, first
Chris
of all,
Paul
it's
is
not like
the
I'm
NBA
comparing.
equivalent of Tom Brady.
Chris Paul is one of the greatest point guards to ever play the game, is he not?
And Tom Brady is the winningest quarterback ever.
I understand that.
How many championships does Chris Paul have?
Of a surefire Hall of Fame player.
How many finals appearances does Chris Paul have? One of the greatest of all time at his position, coming into a young, dynamic, talented team to rise them to a higher level. How many NBA MVPs does Chris Paul have?
Chris Paul has better commercials than Tom Brady.
He does have good commercials. Although the commercial with Brady and Gronk with the T-Mobile, really good. Really good commercial. That swayed me a bit.
I don't even remember that one. I'm blanking on that one. Okay. So, but this, and there's not even a fun transition to this one, but someone who does have a championship, who has championship experience, is Wes Miles. College football national champ.
He's got something all right.
From his LSU days. He's been at Kansas the last couple of years. He's now out at Kansas after just a series of allegations of sexual harassment and all that have come out. This was unfortunately became probably the biggest story of the college football offseason. I'm not sure if there's an exact, specific question here. Just like, what do you guys think of this whole, the Wes Miles situation?
I tell you, this is a you-know-what show right now, and it looks really bad for LSU. It obviously looks bad for Les Miles, and it looks bad for college football because these allegations we'll tell them what they are. They're allegations. There's a big cover-up going on supposedly with LSU. USA Today released multiple great stories about this. They're doing an investigation on it. But LSU is supposedly known about this since 2013 when the then athletic director sent an email and said, we need to fire this guy. Now we need to get rid of him because we need to get ahead of this thing. And they kept him there till 2016. And then Kansas hired him, and nobody knows yet if Kansas knew about what was going on, but they just now parted ways when all this kind of hit the fan, right? But the thing is, Kansas's statement when they said they're parting ways, they made no mention of this. They kind of implied that it was football related, which I mean, he's 3-18, and I get that it is football related, but at this point, LSU has kind of a bad history of these kind of allegations now. Even Ed Orgeron, the coach, they're now the last 4 seasons. There have been, I believe, USA Today said it was 9 players that have been accused of sexual misconduct and things of that nature. And it just doesn't look good for LSU. And it just makes it look like that winning football games, trumps all kind of thing, which is, I think, the wrong message to send. And it's just a bad look. And the other thing is, like, these coaches, man, he got a second coaching job. I'm not going to be shocked at all when he gets another coaching job down the road. And the NCAA is so quick to punish players for, like, oh, someone loaned you a car, someone gave you money, someone helped you get an apartment. We're going to take away your trophy. We're going to take away your wins from the team, all those other things. But then, like, these coaches get chance after chance after chance. And I think that's wrong. I think it's honestly wrong.
Oh, it's absolute crazy. Dillon, you're going to need to get your dolphin sound ready because I'm coming with some fire right now. And to start this
family show, brother.
Dolphin, just 3 Dolphins here, okay? Les Miles, LSU, and Kansas. Okay? So here's the reality. There is no way in ever living hell that Kansas did not know what was going on. I promise you. You can't tell me that in no way, shape, or form that Kansas wasn't informed. Hey, you're hiring Les Miles. Here, you need to really be careful. Here's, some issues that he may have and that he has had in LSU and et cetera, et cetera. So it's just something to keep an eye on. I promise you that absolutely was known. And I'm sure it'll come out here at some point, but especially LSU. How dare them cover that up? How dare them make winning football games more important than what that man was doing? How dare them allow that man to abuse the power that was given to him? And we had this conversation the other night in our meeting leading up to the show, going over segments and what have you. And the crazy thing is most of these college football coaches are literally the highest paid people in the states that they live in, meaning that nobody at all in their state makes more money than them.
State
so
employee,
for him to have that kind of power and to parade it and abuse it the way that he did, and LSU to say that, we understand it's bad. Don't go near the students and the chicks and all that stuff, or the females and all that, but we still need to win football games. That is exactly why we see the protests. We see so many people that are so passionate about changing the certain cultural things in our society today, because things like that are allowed, because it's more important to win a game than it is to protect someone's life. I mean, we don't even have the full story. Where could there potentially be? So, I know a lot of it was consensual from my understanding, though wrong. But what about the ones that aren't consensual? What else haven't we heard or been told or discovered? And in what ways, though maybe consensual, in what ways did he abuse his power to manipulate? right? And
that's the thing, Austin. Yeah.
Vulnerability. It's just so it fires me up, man. The whole situation and any like it just burns me to my core, and it is absolutely ridiculous in 2021 that things like this are still happening.
That's the thing, Austin. It's just because even if like some people, I know some people are coming to his defense, believe it or not, and saying, well, he didn't break the law. Just because it's legal doesn't mean it's morally right. He's a man in power. He's got all this money and he's abusing his position. And like they reported that he said, I want the female staff members we hire to have a certain look. It's gross to read stuff like that, it's just,
and so that to him power. That's just, hey, as I come to your football program, make sure you have a beautiful buffet for me to pick from. Get real. How do you defend that? Oh, that's disgusting.
Yeah. And the messed up part is nothing, because it's happened in the SEC and LSU. Nothing surprises me when it comes to like SEC football and what they will allow people to get away with. It's just such a machine down there. And yeah, winning is so important. And, it's just so much part of the culture that, I mean, I'm not surprised when, any coach, player at one of these schools like LSU, Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, whatever, when we hear about stuff like this and we hear that these schools were, covering it up and letting you guys get away with stuff. And, how there's a culture of this thing, these things going on for like decades without getting checked until someone gets caught publicly. It's just become like normal, you know what I mean? To hear about this stuff and to hear about how people weren't getting busted right away. It's just, it's sad, and I mean, just, you feel for all the victims and, people who were like in their personal lives harmed by this. Other people I feel bad for in this situation and this is because I know a couple of them, like Kansas football fans, because like you could see a little bit of improvement with that program, right? Like Kansas football is just traditionally, they're bad, right? They haven't been to a bowl game since like 2008. They haven't had a winning season in like forever. And when were they ever going to get somebody with like Wes Miles' resume, right? With a national championship already on his record? When were they going to get a big name like that to coach the Kansas Jayhawks football program? So they get this guy, this like famous coach, this championship winning coach. And okay, we're going to turn it around. And yeah, they went 3-18 in his 2 seasons, but I was looking at the recruiting rankings. And they were, the year before he got there, last place in the Big 12 in their recruiting. And then his first year, they go up to 6th place. And then this past year, they were 5th place in the Big 12. So it's like, you were seeing like, okay, he's starting to get more talent because he's Wes Miles, right? He's a name. He's a good recruiter. He did it at LSU. And it was like, okay, Kansas football, like, they might be something in a little bit, but then this happens, he's out. This is going to stain the program. I don't know who they're, where they go from here. I just feel like they go right back to the bottom of the Big 12 and they stay there for the foreseeable future. So it, sucks for them. And when I say sucks for the program, I don't mean the leadership of the program, because like Austin said, they're complicit in this too, right? So I don't feel bad for them. I feel bad for like, fans of the program, people who just want that school to be good at football. And now it looks like they're not going to be. The players who went there because they wanted to play for Wes Miles, and now that's not going to happen. I feel bad for them. And then, yeah, just, everybody else that he, victimized, harassed, put in uncomfortable positions and was allowed to get away with it because of who he is and because of that resume. So just, overall, just crappy situation. But it's like, college sports in 2021, like what's new, so another college coach, this time college basketball coach that was, kind of, I don't know, in the hot seat or under the pressure cooker this past week is Greg McDermott, basketball coach at Creighton. He giving a post-game speech after a loss, he said something to his players about, everyone needs to stick together and we need to like stay on the plantation, like don't leave the plantation. He immediately apologized to the team. He came out publicly, apologized for it and all that. The school suspended him for a game, and now he's back because they've got the Big East tournament coming up. So again, with the Wes Miles thing, it's just like, it's almost normal. It's like just, when we see successful people in power mess up and they get what people think are like a light punishment. So do you think like this McDermott situation, do you think the punishment was too light just to get a 1-game suspension? Or, do you think he's been like thoroughly embarrassed enough? Or like, what do you think should have been done with this situation?
So I do think the punishment was too light, but I don't think it should have been that much more severe, right? Mm-hmm. I think the punishment was only so light was because of the fact that it was, somewhat well received. The guy, he came out, he got in front of it, said, "Hey, I really screwed up." He told on himself, He was the one who came forward and just said, "Yeah, I really screwed up, and this is what I said, and I understand that is not okay." So and I believe in second chances, and I don't think it was an intentional thing. And unfortunately, this just goes back to our society's social constructs and the fact that sayings like that are so easily, we all get in the heat of the moment where we, the things that you say, it just boom, comes out of your mind, whatever hits your mind and comes out of it. And our society has very, very deep rooted racism that runs throughout. And as a white man, and I'm sure Dillon can agree as well, I've been in situations where I'm having just normal conversation or say something or whatever the case. And again, being that I have a wife who is part African-American, a father-in-law who is full African-American, everything. And so, I've got kids who are part Black, but I've said and done things that I think, and I'm like, oh man, like that's not okay. That's like, man, but it isn't something that I ever considered to be racist or whatever the case, just because that's just the society that we've been raised in or that we've grown up in. So I think it's like, he doesn't need to be raked over the coals for months on end, nor should he lose his job or anything. But I think 1 game, a week, maybe give him a week. But yeah, I think he was earnest in his response and his apology, and just slipped up, man. And you got to forgive some of that and just hope that now his eyes have been opened to be a better ally. So
it's tough for me to really give this guy too much credit for telling on himself, because not only did he say something extremely stupid, but he said it twice. He doubled down on it. And saying something like "stay on the plantation," that's not a phrase that anybody uses outside of a racist context, right? This isn't like it has 2 meanings and I didn't mean it that way kind of thing. And it's like, who has that in their vernacular in the first place, right? Like, obviously he has said this before, I would think. He didn't just all of a sudden say it twice out of nowhere, and I've never even thought that before. I can't buy that. But I also wonder, if this team wasn't really good and they weren't about to go into the NCAA tournament, would he have gotten a longer suspension? It's another thing. Winning beats everything, right? Would he have gotten more than a game? They're like, all right, let's give him a game so it looks like we punished him and bring him back. I'm not saying he should be fired, but I can't give him too much credit for he stood up for it, he told on himself kind of thing. It's like, what he did was extremely stupid. I don't think he should be like damned to all eternity or something like that. But it's like, it's just, I can't get over how dumb it was what he said. When Amaar first told me this story, I was blown away at just the sheer stupidity of the statement. It's like, who says something like that? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just can't imagine what his players were thinking too. They're like probably looking around amongst themselves, right? Like, what? And then he says it again. He doubles down on it, right? Like, this, come on, man. It's mind blowing to me. It's just so bad.
I've definitely been in a situation where I worked for a guy that, we'd have meetings like that where he'd say something and you're like, he's not allowed to say that, you know what I mean? But
Yeah, I think
that's tough. That's a tough situation.
Yeah, I think the timing of when it happened during the season has everything to do with how long the suspension was. I think if it was earlier in the season, middle of the year, beginning of the year, it would have been longer than that, because it was right before they had this big game against Villanova, which they didn't suspend him for that. They suspended him for the game after that. And then they're going into the Big East tournament. So just the timing of it made it was like, okay, we don't want to, bench our coach for this like important stretch of the year. So I think that there's that part. Should have been a longer suspension. The thing with the suspensions is like, I'm not sure what missing games does for him in that situation. You know what I mean? The athletic director, in his statement, I mean, he talked about McDermott's he said commitment to grow. He said that comment like multiple times. Like he's made a commitment to grow, which is good. And it seems like he's pretty genuine about his apology, and that he feels bad, and that it was just a mistake he made, and he's whatever. But I wonder, like, what happens during the period when he is suspended? Does he just go home and do nothing and just sit in the corner and think about what you did, or do you have him doing things actively to grow while he's suspended? If you're gonna have him doing stuff, I don't know if that's doing trainings or classes, or
Right.
he needs to sit down with all of his players and talk about what happened. He needs to reach out to the families of a lot of his players and talk about what happened, because when these parents send these kids off to play for a college coach, a lot of them are trusting this college coach to be like a father figure. They're trusting this college coach to be their eyes and ears, because they can't watch their kid now, right? Because their kid's off at college. So these parents, they trust these coaches. And when you do something like that, you break that trust. So it's like, however long he was suspended, he needed to take that time to mend the fences and build the bridges that he burned, because I'm sure he burned some bridges. I'm sure there's some parents that they don't want their kids playing for him anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And by all accounts, from what I've heard, just people who work in the college basketball world, McDermott's generally a good guy. He's well liked. He's known for sticking up for his players and being like a good an advocate for them and everything. And it seems like you haven't heard like his former players coming out and be like, oh yeah, he did this and that, and I saw him do this other racist thing to me when I was there. So it seems like this might just be a one-time dumb thing, but he still needs to he did get in front of it. That's good. He needs to go on the back end and fix some of these relationships that he definitely damaged. So I mean, the suspensions, whatever. I don't know. He's been publicly embarrassed. I'm sure he feels crappy about it. But yeah, he just needs to go and just talk to the people he did hurt or potentially hurt. And
you're right. He needs to make real, true, honest steps for growth. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the parents at home who, because I know a lot of the players defended him and like people at the school defended him because they know him. But like, if you don't know him that real well, and like this is a headline that just hits you in the face, the parents reading this going, "Oh my gosh, this is the guy I sent my kid to play for." It's not good. It's not a good look.
It's not, and especially you got to think, okay, if I'm a parent, I have a black son, and I'm sending him to Omaha, Nebraska to play for this guy, I'm already a little like, let's say if I'm from like a, like a big city or somewhere, I have a certain idea of what Omaha, Nebraska might be like for my black child. Right.
Yeah.
And I send him there to you. And then I hear, oh, you're saying some racist stuff. Like, I'm scared now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm pissed and I'm worried for my kid. I'm like, oh, this is the environment he's in, And so, yeah, like he's just got to, talk to those people, do that work, rebuild their trust. And he might lose some players off of this. Like, some people might want to transfer. He's probably going to lose some recruits, people, who are considering going there, who are not going to go there now. And that's the price you got to pay, so. But that out of the way, Creighton, they're gonna go to the NCAA tournament. They're I think they're ranked in the top 25 overall, so they'll be in the tournament. So you'll see and hear more from McDermott as we kind of go through March Madness. But as we get into March Madness, so we got conference tournaments going on right now. Selection Sunday is coming up. Is there like a team or a player out there, just like someone or something that y'all are excited about going into this March Madness period?
I'll tell you what I'm excited about. And I thought about this subject for quite a while, trying, full disclosure, not to be a homer about it. I can't help it. RU, Rutgers University, the Scarlet Knights look like they're going to make the NCAA tournament for the first time since 1991. And I am thrilled. 91. I'd like to think that since I've been at this school, I'm good luck to the team. I'd like to take some credit too, of course.
They couldn't do it without you.
Couldn't have done it without me. That the team looks so good and well balanced. Former Dillon Holloway classmate Ron Harper Jr. is scoring 15 points per game. Ron Harper Jr. is, his dad also won 5 championships in the NBA, right? Yeah. But more importantly, he was my former classmate, right? This guy, it looks like a baller out there, and the team just looks awesome. And I'm so excited for them to make the conference tournament for the first time in literally 20 years. They're doing something the Mariners can't do. They're making the postseason. They're no longer breaking my heart, baby. And I hope for them to go on a deep run. I don't know if I can get them in the Final Four in my bracket. We'll see how it plays out on Selection Sunday. But I think this team is really exciting. It's exciting for Rutgers University, for the state of New Jersey. And it's just an exciting time right around here right now. And I'm giddy. I'm busting, Austin. I'm busting.
I could imagine. Hey, wait, we're really getting technical. They couldn't do it without you for the last 2 decades. They haven't done it without you. You know what I mean? So you're there. Now they're going to go. I mean, yeah, you may have been the missing piece.
Look, we talked about Anthony Simons and the top thing on his resume being winning a dunk contest. We got to do with this podcast is we got to get Dillon so famous that the top thing on Ron Harper Jr.'s resume is that he was Dillon Holloway's classmate.
Yeah.
Not that he led Rutgers to the tournament for the first time since 91. Not that he goes to the NBA. Not that he's Ron Harper's son. It's that he went to class with Dillon Holloway.
That's right. That's right. We did sports issues with Professor Miller together. So shouts out Professor Miller at Rutgers University. So
that's awesome. So for me, it's Gonzaga. It's Gonzaga men's basketball. They're incredible this year. They've got 3 very dynamic players. Very much being a homer. Gonzaga's from the home state here, Washington State. And I got to tell you, Gonzaga's been, not necessarily in this position with the potential to go to be the second ever undefeated team to go all the way and win the championship, but just Gonzaga in general winning their first ever title. And this team just seems to have a different energy about it. It feels like you have Gonzaga than everybody else. And even in years past when Gonzaga has been rated high, even made the finals, everything like that, you just always felt like it was going to be an underdog story, or that they weren't necessarily destined to win it, or didn't have all the firepower to win it, or whatever, But this year, they have just been in a class by themselves. in terms of how they've been playing. I was a little worried because when we very first started going into what our what we'd be talking about in these segments and what have you, Gonzaga was down, but they did pull it off to be 25-0. And so, like I said, there's just a really, really real possibility that they run through the rest of the season undefeated, the rest of the or go through the whole tournament undefeated and win the championship. And man, I am here for it. I am absolutely here to see them boys finally win a championship.
All right, so I'm gonna stay on the West Coast, and the Pac-12 is not. I mean, it's not what it used to be. It is a power conference in name only, not a power conference in terms of like performance the last few years. Probably the best team in the Pac-12 right now, tournament seed wise, probably USC. They are, I think, projected to be like a 6 seed, somewhere around there. But USC has a freshman big man, Evan Mobley. Watch him. He might only play. They might only be around for one tournament game, but watch Evan Mobley play. He won Pac-12 Player of the Year, Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year, Pac-12 Freshman of the Year. Like, just sweat, every Pac-12 award he could win. He reminds me a lot of like Chris Bosh and maybe like some Marvin Bagley, if y'all remember Marvin Bagley from Duke. Just like kind of, like a skinny big man, but just real like solid player. One of those guys, he can dominate a game without scoring, right? Rebound and blocking shots, just drawing defenders and passing and just creating, spacing, just because he's such a big threat. So just as far as like, top freshman, if you want to see a future NBA player, like a projected top 2-3 pick. So check out Evan Mobley. He might not be around long because USC's like, they're good, but they're not like great. So that's one guy that I'm really looking forward to watching in March. So right now we're going to take a little break, but when we come back, Dillon is going to tell y'all what is going to happen with Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks. So I'll come back for that.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. Enjoying triple overtime? Do you like hearing about professional wrestling as well? Well, then we have the show for you. From the makers of Triple Overtime as part of the Deal Industries worldwide YouTube channel comes May I Take This Bump? Tag team partners Dylan Devine and Matt Ecstatic relive their glory days and talk about the latest dealings in professional wrestling.
Much has been made about the Russell Wilson and Seahawks. It appears to be impending divorce. They've got kind of a mini feud going on. And I am a journalist, but I'm also a fan. And as a fan, as you can see the helmet behind me, I'm a huge Seahawks fan. I grew up a Seahawks fan, as my little brother Austin can attest to. We both go crazy for the Seahawks. First run they made to the Super Bowl, legendary to us. Their first Super Bowl win. Austin cried. I might have shed a tear here and there, but it was a big deal. And Russell Wilson is undoubtedly the greatest quarterback we've ever had in franchise history. And so for a lot of Seahawks fans, it's disappointing, it's sad, it's frustrating to see not possibly, but the greatest coach in franchise history and the best quarterback in franchise history having at least somewhat of a tiff, right? Somewhat of a rift. And it all started innocently enough with a interview with Dan Patrick. Patrick asked him if he's frustrated about anything on the Seahawks. Russell Wilson mentioned the offensive line, and it seemed to snowball from there. And snowball it has to present day. Wilson said something along the lines of, I'm not demanding a trade, but if I were to be traded, here's 4 teams I wouldn't mind going to. Now, to me, he had these teams thought of ahead of time, it looked like. And if you weren't wanting to get out of Seattle, why would you already have 4 teams picked? Dan Patrick, I think, said it best when he related it to, if someone's married, hey, I'm happily married, but here's 4 women I wouldn't mind dating, right? You wouldn't say that unless you really wanted out. And it seems like Russell Wilson wants out. And Seahawks fans, I got some bad news for you. I think it's not going to end well. I think it's going to end in divorce. Maybe not this season because of the dead cap hit, unless the Seahawks get an amazing, amazing deal. But it doesn't look good. But it's not going to be the end of the world. And honestly, most Hall of Fame quarterbacks don't end on the same team they were drafted by. Joe Namath, Joe Montana, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady just recently. We can look at all these. They ended with different teams. It's going to be the end of a great run, but it's not going to be the end of the Seahawks history or franchise. Life will go on, and we'll go on as Seahawks fans. And I say this because even though I cover different teams and I am a journalist, I'm still a fan, and it is important to me. My favorite football team.
Great segment, Dillon. I can't say enough great things about it. I absolutely love to hear it. And man, yeah, I'm slowly having to come to the realization that Russell Wilson is not going to retire in Seattle. But, you know, at the end of the day, this franchise has shown time and time again that it's been able to bounce back. So with that being said, though, man, I think time to just get into a few final thoughts, you know. This will give us an opportunity to just say our quick little piece about what's going on in the sports world in general, and then we'll take it out from here. So personally, my little final thought will be calm down on the Russell Wilson trade talks. Man, we know it's inevitable at this point, but gosh, the guy can't even breathe without all of a sudden the story being about him not breathing Seahawks air and how he's going somewhere else. Everything's being blown way out of proportion. He's not leaving this season. So save the story and all the juicy stuff for next year. When we start really figuring out where he's going to go. Okay. Let's find something new to talk about, I guess, is my point. and that just speaks for all fans of media in general. So what do you got, Dillon?
My final thought is that today on this show, I learned that Chris Paul is the NBA equivalent of Tom Brady, the winningest football player in the history of the sport of football. So, Amaar, what do you got?
Kind of piggybacking off the Russell Wilson segment. Right now, and this is off of Dak Prescott signing his contract with the Dallas Cowboys. 4 highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL right now: Patrick Mahomes, Dak Prescott, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson. It's 4 black quarterbacks as the 4 highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. It wasn't that long ago that black quarterbacks people thought they couldn't play quarterback in the NFL. Mm-hmm. Warren Moon went undrafted out of college in 1978. Warren Moon, Hall of Fame talent, did not get drafted because NFL teams still were hesitant about or just outright refused to play black quarterbacks. And now we're in a situation where the top 4 highest paid QBs in the league are black. That to me is like incredible. That, just how much progress has been made in a relatively short time. And also sad that there are still, because it wasn't that long ago, there's still people who are alive today, and some people who are still in football decision-making roles in the NFL and in college football who still kind of have that mindset, but they're being proven wrong. So that was just kind of my thought off of the Wilson talk and the Dak contract. I just saw that and was like, wow, like that's crazy that like that's happening.
Now we just need to work on head coaches and GMs. And owners, right?
Yep.
That's the next step, I think. So,
but
Eric Bieniemy needs a job as a head coach
for real.
That's my final thought.
All right.
And with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in and watching. If you haven't already, make sure you drop a like, hit that share button. Well, if you're watching this off of Facebook or any of that or that kind of stuff. Anyways, hit that share button, subscribe to the channel, and do not forget, hit that little pingly dingly bell there next to the subscribe button, because then you'll be notified every single time this channel drops a video. Boys, thank you so much for an amazing first episode on Triple Overtime. And with that being said, peace.